Click this button to open the Measure Values form. Measure values are used to describe the amount of ingredients used in recipe and meals. They're also used to describe the serving size of recipes. Measure values are also used in defining individual ingredients. If you open the form when the cursor is not in a field for a measure, the form will open in unfiltered mode. When it opens, you'll see the first measure, which is the blank measure. If you click in a measure value in one of the fields, the form will synchronize with that value. We'll go to pound. Pound. It'll also synchronize in the serving size drop-down. You use the Measure Values form to add, much, edit, and delete measure values. This form works in a similar manner as was previously described for the Quantities form. New measures are added with this button. They're edited or modified with this button. They're deleted with this button. A check in the All See checkbox means that the measure is a public measure. The source of the measure or the person who added it to the database is in this control. Click this button to add a new measure. The cursor must be in a non-measure field, or the form needs to be unfiltered first. I'll click in this ingredient field. If you don't do that, by the way, the form will keep synchronizing to the value of the measure where the cursor is. Click the button. Enter the name for the new measure. Use the Enter key. We'll navigate to that measure using the drop-down. There it is. You can edit the measure by first clicking the Edit button that unlocks the record, make your change, and use the Enter key. After you save that change, note that the form locked up again. You can't make any changes when this says Edit. Delete key does nothing. Click the trash can to delete the currently viewed measure value. You need to be cautious if you've used a measure value in any recipe or meal records or in any ingredient records. Deleting the measure will break those records. I know that this has never been used before, so I'll say yes. I'll confirm with a yes, and it's been deleted. We open this drop-down. That example, measure is no longer there. I'll close the measure form and navigate to the last meal. Add a new measure directly in the measure field by clicking in a blank record in the measure field. Dismiss the drop-down with the escape key and simply type the name of the new measure. I'll re-add the one we just deleted, then hit the Enter key. We're asked to confirm that we will enter the example measure as a new measure. I'm going to say yes. The cursor jumps to the ingredients field. We're asked to enter ingredient. I'm going to choose California avocados as an example for doing this. I'll click that. Read this message carefully. You're being asked if you would like to create a new ingredient that is Avocado California by the new measure value we just created, or do you want to go with the avocado ingredient by the each that we selected? I'm going to go with a yes, I want to create a new avocado ingredient using the new measure example measure. I'll say yes. At this point, I'm just going to close the ingredient form with the stop sign. We're going to delete our example measure again. To proceed, we'll click in a measure field. Open the measure form. There's our example. I'm going to unfilter the record, and I'll navigate back to that item. Again, we've used this measure in this ingredient in this meal. And at the same time that we created the new measure, in the measure field we also created a new avocado ingredient that used that measure value. Once again, I'm going to delete the measure. Are you really sure I'm going to say yes, even though I know it's been used in a meal record? It's also been used in the avocado ingredient that we created at that same time. I'll say yes. We get the relationship deletion warning. I'm going to say yes. Confirmation. Okay. The ingredient in this meal that used that measure has been deleted. I'll click in any ingredient up here and open the ingredient form. I'm going to try to find that avocado ingredient that we created with example measure. Here are all the avocados, and the one that we had created with the example measure is no longer there. That's because at the same time that we deleted the example measure value, it deleted not only the ingredient in this meal that it was used in, it also deleted the avocado ingredient that was created using that measure when we initially created the measure in the measure ID field. I'll close with a stop sign. To enter a new measure value while working directly in the ingredients form, click this button to open the ingredients form. Click this button to start a new ingredient. We'll call this ingredient New Ingredient. Enter key. Now type in the name for your new measure. We'll reuse the measure we just deleted. Enter key. Confirm with the yes. This prompt is asking you if you want to change the selected recipe ingredients measure, that is to say, this item, this is currently the selected ingredient. I'm going to say no. Now we have a new ingredient using the measure example measure that was entered directly in the ingredient form. Click this button to reopen the measure form. The measure we recently created in the ingredient form example measure has never been used in any recipe or meal ingredient item, but it has been used in this ingredient itself. I'm going to go ahead and navigate to that ingredient, and I'll delete it with the trash can. I'll say yes, I'm really sure I want to do this. I get the familiar record and relationship warning. That's because it's trying to tell us if I delete this measure is also going to delete this ingredient. I'll say yes. Confirm. The ingredient form refreshed to pick up the ingredient that was currently selected in the meal list here. And if we search the measure form, we no longer see our example ingredient. I'll close this form, reopen it to refresh it. I'll open this drop-down and try to find our new ingredient, NEW, and it's not there, so when we deleted the measure example measure, we also deleted the ingredient called new ingredient. I'll close this and I'll close this. Access the measures form from the Manage Records menu and open it using measure values.